to the botany classes. So in the last class we had discussed about the parts of the flower, wherein I mentioned about the calyx, the corolla, and we also discussed in detail about the sepals and petals. I said that sepals, they are leaf-like green in color, and they perform the function, they offer the protection of they offer the function as protection for the flowers when they are in the bud stage, and the corolla, which are brightly colored, they attract the insects for pollination, right? And we also discussed the shapes of the corolla, wherein I had mentioned only three. You can consider four types shapes of corolla. Shapes of corolla. The first one is tubular, or you can say tube-like, tubular or tube-like. The example I have mentioned, that is disc floret of sunflower. Disc florets of sunflower, tubular. The second is bell-shaped, or campanulate, they say. Here the examples include the tobacco, raspberry, even campanula, right? Bell shaped, they look the bell shaped. Gamopetalous, where the petals are fused, you will see that they are in bell shaped, or you can call them as campanulate. Example is tobacco, raspberry, campanula, right? The third one is funnel shaped. Funnel shaped, or even you can name them as infundi, infundi. We can call them as infundibuliform. Funnel shaped or infundibuliform. So, example, you can consider the Datura or Petunia. Datura or Petunia. The fourth type is wheel shaped, or you can call that rotate, right? Example is brinjal. Okay. So kindly make this note. These are the four types or shapes of corolla generally observed. So you should remember in your NCERT textbook they have just given the names, what shapes you will get of the petals. Here I have given you certain examples where you can imagine. Okay, so note down these examples and also try to understand the shapes. Okay, so after discussing the calyx and corolla, I had discussed about the arrangement, the mode of arrangement of sepals and petals on the floral bud, which we call it as estivation. So I had discussed four estivations. The first one was the valvet. Four types of estivation which I had discussed yesterday were valvet, second one was twisted, third it was imbricate, and fourth it was the vexillary or patty leonaceous. Okay, so four types of estivation, the mode of arrangement of sepals or petals on the floral bud. Now, they follow certain pattern which we have discussed yesterday. So what was the example I had said? Velvet, you can consider calotropis. Allotropis. So what will happen in velvet? That the margin of the petal, they touch each other, but they don't overlap. They don't overlap. Such we call it as velvet and generally observed in allotropis. Twisted, here what happens? They follow, or you can say here the overlapping is seen. What will happen? Margin of the petal will overlap with the adjacent petal like this, like this, like this, like this. So you will see that the margin of the petals will be overlapping with each other, the adjacent petal. Such type of, you can say the arrangement, you call it as twisted. Whereas, example, here you can consider the cotton, lady's finger, and China rose. And China rose. These are the examples. Now, imbricate, what will happen? In imbricate, they don't follow any type of direction. Meaning what? One will be out, the adjacent will be, you can say like this, and one will be out, and this will be like this. So there is no, you can say the posterior, it will be completely enclosed by the lateral petals, whereas the anterior ones, it is outside. And you will see that it is not following any particular direction or the, you can say pattern. Such type of arrangement we call it as imbricate. Okay, we call it as imbricate. Remember, example, cassia and gulmohar. Gulmohar. Okay, cassia and gulmohar. Vexillary or catenation side said that posterior side you will have large petal like this, and you will be having two lateral petals which are small, and these are said the given name. I will tell them. And at the anterior side you will see the fused petal. Okay, very small fused petal like this. So the one, this is called as standard, and this is called as wings, and this is called as the key. Okay, remember this. Examples P and B. This is what we had discussed yesterday. Fine. From here, I am going to take the Androecium. Now, what is this Androecium? Androecium, as I said, it is a verb. The individual member of Androecium, we call it as what? We call it as stamen. We call it as stamen, right? Now, this stamen or the Androecium, what it is? It is representing, or it is the male reproductive structure in the flower. Remember this. This is the male reproductive structure. It is the male reproductive structure. Remember this. Androecium is a verb. The members of the Androecium are stamen. It is an individual member, stamen we call, and it is the male reproductive structure. Remember this. Now, stamen has different parts. Yesterday I said a thin, slender stalk. We call this as filament. And we have a bilobed anther. I said we have a bilobed anther like this. We have a bilobed anther. Remember, this we call it as anther. Right? This entire structure, we call it as stamen. Now, this enlarged, when you take section of this, like the transverse section, how you will observe? You will observe that so this is the enlarged view, you can say. Inside that you will have the pollen sacs like this. Right? And inside that you will have pollen grains. So this is the transverse section when you cut it. So this one, this is anther lobe. Anther lobe, you can say. This entire structure, you can say this is anther lobe. This is filament, I have drawn it. And what is this? This is pollen sac. This is pollen sac, or you can call it as microsporangia. Microsporangia. Now, this sac is nothing like a bag-like structure. It is bag-like structure. Now, what will be having? It is enclosed with the pollen grains. Remember this. The dot things what I am showing, they are pollen grains. Remember, these are the pollen grains. So, pollen grains are present in the pollen sacs. They act as a bag, and these are present in the, you can say, anthers. Anther holds the pollen grains. Remember this. Now, what is the structure? It is usually bilobed anther. Remember this. You can say bilobed. Okay, bilobe anther. This is what androecium is. Androecium is a bulb. Like androecium may have multiple stamens. Each stamen will be having the thin stalk, which we call it as filament, and it has at the topmost end you have the anther. Anther is usually bilobed, okay, where it will be having a microsporangia or the pollen sac, in which you will find the pollen grains. Remember, and it represents what? It is a male reproductive structure. Now, anther, or you can say the stamens, they may be fused or they may be free. When they are fused, when they are free, we call it as polyandrous. Polyandrous. Polyandrous is what? When the stamens are free. Stamens are free. You will see that in some flowers that stamens are fused. Stamens are fused. Especially the filaments of anther, of stamen. The filaments of stamen are fused, and this condition we call it as adelphi. We call it as adelphi. Remember this, and it has several types. Adelphi conditions are of several types. The one is monoadelphous. Monoadelphous. What is this monoadelphous condition? When the filaments, if they are fused and they are in one bundle, and usually in monoadelphous condition, you will observe the staminal tube. Which has many stamens on it. It covers the gynoecium. Okay, see, if this is a gynoecium, okay, surrounding that you will have this staminal tube. On that you will see multiple stamens coming out. Such condition, all the stamens are present in one bunch. That condition we call it as monoadelphous condition. We call it as monoadelphous condition. Where we will observe? We will observe it in China rose. China rose. China rose is a hibiscus which is of Malvaceae family. Okay, remember this. Which is of Malvaceae family. Now, monoadelphous condition here it is simple. The stamens when they are present in one bundle. In one bundle. I said when they are free, you call it as polyandrous. When they are present in one bundle, when the stamens, or in particular, if the filament of the stamen and they are bunched together in one group, we call it as monoadelphous condition, which we observe it in China rose. Example is very important. Second, diadelphous condition. Diadelphous condition. What is diadelphous condition? When the stamens are present in two bunches. When they are present in two bunches, we call it as diadelphous condition. So you will see that one bundle will be like this, and the other will be separate like this. Now, usually in P, you will observe that 9 stamens are present in one group, whereas single stamen is present in the other bunch. So here 2 bunches are there. That's why we say it as diadelphous condition. We call it as diadelphous condition. Third, now when they are present in one bundle, we said it is monoadelphous. When they are present in 2 bundles, we call it as diadelphous. When they are present more than 2, what we call? We call it as polyadelphous condition. Polyadelphous condition. Example, citrus. Like this, bunch. If they are present, if stamens are present in bunch, multiple bunches, more than 2 bunches, then we call it as polyadelphous condition. Example, citrus is very important. Remember, citrus is very important. I hope it is clear to you. And the stamens, if they are free, no, stamens if they are free, means there is no association. Such we call it as what? We call it as the polyandrous. Now, when the stamens, especially the filament, if it shows the fusion or united with the other stamen, we call it as the what? Adelphi. Adelphi. So you can say it as cohesion. Cohesion of stamen. What we are studying? We are studying cohesion. Cohesion means what? Cohesion means the floral parts of the similar whorl, if they are united, we call it as cohesion. What is cohesion? Floral parts of similar whorl is united or fused, we call it as cohesion. We call it as cohesion. What we are studying? Cohesion of stamen, meaning what we are studying? The stamen shows fusion with the other stamen. We are seeing the conditions. What conditions are found in the flowers? So the first one we saw was the monoadelphous, diadelphous, polyadelphous. Monoadelphous means when the stamens are present in one bunch. We call it as monoadelphous. That is observed in China rose. Now, diadelphous condition when the stamens, especially the filament, the thread-like structure, no, the filament, the thin slender filament, if they show association or if they are found in 2 bunches, like this, 2 bunches. This is one bunch and separate one bunch is there. Then we call it as diadelphous condition. The example is P. Now, in the polyadelphous condition, you will see that the bunches or the group of stamens are more than 2. There are more than 2 groups or 3. Then such condition we call it as polyadelphous condition. Okay. Now there is one more term, Syngenus. Syngenus condition. Now, what is the meaning of syngenous condition? I said adelphi is what? When the filaments are united. You have a stamen. In stamen, you know, if this is a stamen, right? You have a bilobed anther, and this is a filament, right? This is a filament. This is anther. Now, I say when the filament shows fusion, we said adelphi. Now, anther, when it is clubbed, you will see that the anthers, multiple anthers, having fused, and filament is only one. Then such condition we call it as syngenous. Syngenous. Generally, we observed in Compositae, sunflower family, Compositae family. The members of the Compositae family, they will be having the syngenous condition. Meaning what? Here the stamens is fused, but especially anthers show the fusion, not filament. Such condition we call it as syngenous condition. You have synandrous condition. What is the synandrous? I said polyandrous when they are free. Synandrous means here both the anther and filament, both the anther and filament show, both the anther and the filament show, or you can say they fuse, they are united, both the anther and filament both are united. A complete stamen or only filaments, and they show fusion. Such we call it as synandrous. Remember, throughout the length of the, you can say, stamen, they show fusion. Even the filament as well as anther, they are grouped. Even anther shows fusion as well as filament shows fusion. One stamen is there, other stamen has joined or fused. Both the parts of the stamen are fused. Such condition we call it as synandrous condition. Remember this. Now, generally, the example is Calotropis. Okay, Calotropis is the example. Next, moving forward, now we have studied what is the cohesion. Now, what is adhesion? This Androecium is may show the fusion with other parts of the flower when the stamen shows fusion with other parts of flower. We call it as adhesion. Adhesion of stamen. A stamen may show fusion with other parts. Now, what are the other parts? You have calyx, you have corolla, and you have gynoecium, right? Now, stamen may show association with the petals. Such fusion we call it as epipetalous. Epipetalous, remember this. We call it as epipetalous. When the stamen shows fusion with petals, we call it as epipetalous condition. Example, brinjal. Example is brinjal. Now, if the stamen shows fusion with the tepals or perianth, then we name it as epiphyllous or epitepalous. Epiphyllous or epitepalous. The example is lily. Liliaceae family. Right? Brinjal is Solanaceae family. In Liliaceae family, you will see that the tepals show fusion with the stamens. Right? And you have one more. When the stamen, when it is shows fusion with gynoecium, what we call? We call it as gynandrous. Gynandrous. Remember this. We call it as gynandrous. Okay, gynandrous condition we say it. No, remember this. So these are the terms you should be knowing. So cohesion is that in the same work, the stamen is there. When it is shows fusion with the other stamen, we call it as cohesion of stamen. Adhesion of stamen means what? When there is the stamen shows fusion with other parts like calyx, corolla, or the you can say gynoecium. We call it as cohesion, addition of stamens, right? Next important thing is gynoecium. 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 So what is this gynoecium? We know it is the fourth word. It is the fourth and the last word of the flower. Fourth and last word of flower, and it is the female reproductive structure. It is the female reproductive structure, and you know that the gynoecium is a verb, and the individual member of gynoecium is carpel. Now, how does the carpel look like? If you see the structure, this is the carpel. You have the enlarged base, which we call it as the ovary. We call it as ovary. And you have a tube-like structure which connects the ovary with the stigma. That we call it as style. Style is what? It is a tube-like structure that connects the ovary with the stigma. So, stigma, style, and ovary all together is what? Carpel. Ovary is what? It is the enlarged base, which will be having ovules. It will be having ovules. Remember, you will be having ovules, and this ovary is connected to stigma via the tube-like structure, which we call it as style. We call it as style, and this stigma, it is the receptive surface. receptive surface of receptive surface for pollen grains. There's a receptive surface for pollen grains. Okay. So what is the stigma? What is the like you can say function? Stigma, why it is there? Now, if you see the stigma, it holds the pollen grains. Whenever by wind or by insects, when they come, they take the pollen grains along them. The insects or the wind or the water, anything that comes, first it is going to land here, and this acts as a surface where it holds the pollen grains. Now, once the pollen grains fall on this receptive surface, which we call it as stigma, what will happen? The pollen grains are transferred to the ovary for fertilization. Now, this process is helped by this style. So that's why you have a slender tube-like structure, which will allow the pollen tubes to travel through it, and it will end up in the ovary. Fine, where the fertilization is normally seen. Double fertilization, what we call, which you are going to study in your higher classes. Now, for this moment, you understand that the carpel has three structures: stigma, which acts as a receptive surface for holding the pollen grains, and you have the style, which is a tube-like structure that connects the ovary with the stigma, and you have an enlarged, bulged portion, which we call it as ovary. Ovary, again, it holds the ovules. You know ovules. Ovules are nothing but after fertilization, the ovules matures into seeds, and the ovary wall becomes the pericarp or the fruit. Okay, I'm going to write ovules are seeds, and ovary becomes fruit. When it will happen? After fertilization. Meaning what? When the male gamete and the female gamete, when they fuse and there is zygote formation, during that time you will see that the same ovules they transform into seeds, and the ovary transforms into fruit. Fine. The ovary walls become the pericarp. Pericarp. Remember this. Now, this ovary, which has a ovules. Now, the ovules are found in the flattened cushion-like structure. The ovules are placed on flattened cushion like structures. You call it as placenta. We call it as placenta. Remember this. We call it as placenta. Very important. In ovary, there are ovules that we understood. The ovules are placed in a flattened cushion-like structure. We call it as placenta. Inside the ovary, you have a placenta. The placenta bears what? Ovules. This you remember. Now, the placenta are of you will find it in different orders. The arrangement of ovules within the ovary, we call it as placentation, which we are going to study now. And one more thing, the carpels in a flower may be one. When the carpel is one, when one carpel is there, we call it as monocarpellary. Monocarpellary. Remember, monocarpellary. When the carpels are two or more than two, so you call it as multicapillary. Carpellary. Okay. When the monocarpellary, you can say polycarpellary, meaning you have more than two carpels. Okay. Mono means one, poly means many. Now this you remember, monocarpellary and polycarpellary. No, monocarpellary conditions means you have only one carpel in a flower. No, the flower may bear multiple carpels. Okay, it may have multiple carpels. When it is found one, you call it as monocarpellary. More than two, you call it as polycarpellary or multicarpellary. What it means. Fine. And when the carpels are, you can say, free, when the carpels are free, you call it as apocarpus. We call it as apocampus. Remember this. When the carpels are fused, we call it as syncarpus. We call it as syncarpus. Now, apocarpus, the examples are very important as per your density. It is lotus and rose. Lotus and rose. Whereas for syncarpus, it is mustard and tomato. Mustard and tomato. So these are the examples you should be remembering. When the carpels are fused, we call it as syncarpus condition. Meaning what? There are multiple carpels. When the carpels are free, you can call them as apocarpus. Meaning what? They will be having the carpels which are free. Example is lotus and rose. The next important thing is placentation. Now I have already explained you what is placenta. Placenta is what? It is a flattened cushion-like structure which holds the ovule within the ovary. Right? You have ovules which are present in the ovary, and these ovules are placed in a cushion-like structure which we call it as placenta. Now the arrangement of the ovules within the ovary within ovary, what we call it as placentation. You have a placenta on which ovules are placed in definite order, which we are going to understand it now. The first one is marginal. Now, what is this marginal placentation? In marginal placentation, you will see that the ovary, or we can say the ovary wall, it forms a ridge on the ventral suture. It forms a ridge on the ventral suture. Now, on this ridge, you will find the ovules into rows. These are the ovules that are placed on this ridge of the ventral suture. Okay, so the ovary which is there, it is forming a ridge on which you will find two rows of the ovules. Generally, this type of placentation you observe it in P. You will observe it in P. Okay, so this is you can say the marginal placentation. The next is axial placentation. What is this axial placentation? In axial placentation, you will see that you have ovary. Within the ovary, you will have multiple locules. You will have multiple locules. These are septum. Septum. Okay. You have multiple locules. These are multiple locules. Okay. These are multiple locules. Means chambers. This is a chamber which has divided the ovary into 3 sections. And at the center, you will have the central axis. This is central axis. Now, the ovules are found on the central axis like this. Okay, so this is how. Now you have the ovary, you have multilocular. So you can write here multiple chambers. It is multilocular. Multilocular. This type you must have observed with tomato. Tomato, if you see tomato fruit, when you cut it, you will see this. No, ovary is nothing but a matured, you can say fruit is nothing but a matured ovary. So when you take out this, you will observe that tomato will be exactly like this. The seeds should be, oils should be placed like this. Tomato, then you have lemon. And even you can consider tomato, lemon, and chana rose. Okay, where you will be seeing that the multilocular chamber will be there. Within that, the oils are placed. Fine. The next one, the third one is the parietal. In parietal, placentation, you will see that the ovary, it is having a false septum, meaning what? Pseudo septum. There will be no locules, and the ovules are found on the periphery. The ovules are found on the periphery. The ovules are found on the periphery. Such type we call it as parietal. Parietal, this condition you will generally observe with the dianthus and primrose. These are the examples. You should be remembering. Okay. In parietal, what will be happening? There will be no septum, meaning it has pseudo septum. When it gets older, the septum, what we saw in axial placentation, those walls will not be there. So you can say it is unilocular, and you will see that the ovules are placed on the periphery. That's why parietal placentation. Example is dianthus and primrose. The next is the free central. In the free central, as the name suggests, you will have the ovary. This is a ovary. At the central, where the central axis will be there, this is central axis. Without any walls, you will see ovules placed like this. So free central we say. Huh? Free central. Sorry, for parietal it is mustard and argemone. Mustard and argemone. Huh? For the free central, the example is dianthus and primrose. Okay, dianthus and primrose. Kindly correct me. I had mentioned the vice versa, so it is wrong. Parietal placentation, you will see that they are based at the periphery, generally observed with mustard and argemone, whereas for the free central, you will see that at the center you will find the ovules placed on the central axis. We call it as dianthus. Examples is dianthus and the primrose. Okay, and the last kind of placentation is the basal type, the basal placentation. The basal placentation. Now, in basal placentation, you will see that there is only one ovule which is found attached to the placentation. So this is the basal placentation. You will find that a single ovule is found within the basal there. Okay, basal. This is the basal. This is the ovule. Okay, this is the ovule. The example for here, sunflower and marigold. Sunflower and marigold. Both are the examples for basal type of placentation. So what we have studied? We have studied the 5 placentations. The first one was the marginal. Example is P. You will see that along the ventral suture, there is a ridge on which the ovules are placed. Such type of placentation we call it as marginal placentation, generally observed in P, Leguminaceae family. And then the axial placentation, where you will see it is a multiple locule or a chamber. Within that, you will find the ovules. In each chamber, you will find 2 ovules placed on the central axis. So, axial placentation, the examples, as I have mentioned, it is tomato, lemon, and you can say the cherry rose. Okay, and with respect to the parietal, you will see that there is false septum. Pseudo septum is there, means there is no wall, and you will see the ovules are placed on the margin. Okay, on the margin. So that's why we call them as parietal. And the examples are the mustard and argemone. Whereas for the free central, you can notice that the ovules are placed on the central axis. Here also there is no septum, so that's why we call it as free central. And the example is dianthus and the primrose. Whereas at the basal, you will see that along the base of the ovary, we will see one ovule which is placed. That's why we call it as basal. Example is sunflower and marigold. Okay, that's it for today. If you have any notes, please do let me know. I'm going to clarify them. And in the next class, I'll be discussing about the continued part of this chapter. Okay, thank you.